It was an ordinary evening at the downtown gym, a place where fitness enthusiasts and aspiring fighters gathered to push their limits. The air smelled of sweat and determination, the rhythmic pounding of fists against punching bags filling the space. Among the many gym-goers, a man named Eric Simmons was going through his usual routine, hitting the heavy bag with controlled intensity, his muscles burning with effort. Eric was no professional fighter, but he prided himself on his skills. Standing at 6 feet with a lean, athletic build, he had trained in boxing and mixed martial arts for years. He had never gone pro, but his punches had weight, and his confidence was rock solid. That night, however, Eric's focus was interrupted by a figure entering the gym, a towering, broad-shouldered man with an aura of effortless dominance. He wore a hoodie and sweatpants, blending in with the crowd, but something about him caught Eric's attention. There was an unshakable confidence in his stride, a presence that demanded attention. Unbeknownst to Eric, that man was none other than Duane "the Titan" Jones, an undefeated heavyweight MMA champion and a legend in combat sports. A challenge is made. Eric watched as the man casually stepped onto the mats, stretching his arms and legs as if he were just another guy looking for a quick workout. Curious, Eric approached, tapping the mysterious figure on the shoulder. "Hey, man," Eric said with a friendly but competitive smirk. "You new here?" The man turned, revealing a rugged but approachable face. His eyes were calm, studying Eric with mild amusement. "Something like that," he replied with a grin. Eric nodded toward the mats. "You ever spar before?" The man chuckled. "Once or twice." Something about his tone irked Eric. He sounded too relaxed, too sure of himself. Maybe it was the fighter in him, but Eric felt the urge to test this guy, to see if he was as tough as he looked. "Wanna go a few rounds?" Eric asked, tossing his gloves onto the mat. A brief pause. Then, with a slow nod, the man accepted. "Sure. Why not?" The fight begins. Word spread quickly around the gym. A small crowd gathered around the mat, excited to see a potential brawl unfold. No one, except the gym owner and a few seasoned fighters, recognized who Eric was about to face. They squared off, touching gloves. Eric immediately took the center of the mat, bouncing lightly on his feet. He threw a few test jabs, expecting his opponent to react aggressively. Instead, the man merely shifted his weight, effortlessly dodging each punch with subtle movements. Eric frowned. "All right, let's see what you got." He feinted left and launched a powerful right hook, one that had dropped several sparring partners before. But before the punch could land, his opponent stepped aside with fluid precision, countering with a light tap to Eric's ribs, just enough to let him know he could have done much worse. Eric's eyes widened. What the hell? The realization hit him like a freight train. This wasn't just some casual gym goer. The way he moved, the way he controlled the space around him, it was the mark of a professional. His opponent grinned. "Keep going." Determined not to embarrass himself, Eric adjusted his stance, throwing combinations with increased speed and power. Yet, every strike was either blocked, dodged, or countered with ridiculous ease. A sudden leg sweep took Eric off balance, and before he could react, he was on the mat, staring up at the fluorescent lights. A hush fell over the crowd. The man reached down, offering his hand. Eric took it, still processing what had just happened. "You're good," the man said, pulling him up. "But you telegraph your punches." Eric exhaled heavily. "Who are you?" Just then, the gym owner walked up, chuckling. "You really don't know?" Eric looked between them, confused. "This," the owner said, patting the man's shoulder, "is Duane Jones." Eric's stomach dropped. His mouth went dry. Duane Jones? The Titan? The undefeated MMA legend? He felt like the biggest fool in the world. A lesson learned. Laughter erupted around them as realization dawned on the spectators. Eric shook his head in disbelief but couldn't help but chuckle along. "Man, I just challenged Duane freaking Jones to a fight." Duane smirked. "And you did alright. Most guys would have run the moment they realized who I was." Eric rubbed the back of his head, still grinning. "Yeah, well. Maybe if I'd known earlier, I would have thought twice." Duane gave him a friendly pat on the shoulder. "You've got heart. Keep training. Maybe next time, you'll last a little longer." Eric laughed, shaking his head. "Next time? Man, I think I'll stick to hitting the bags for now." The crowd slowly dispersed, leaving Eric with a newfound respect for the sport and the fighters at the top. He had walked into that match thinking he was the challenger, but in reality, he had been the student all along. And he had just received the lesson of a lifetime. Months had passed since that unforgettable night in the alley. Duane Jones had thought about it more times than he cared to admit. Not because he was bitter, not because he wanted revenge, but because it was a moment that shook him to his core. A nobody, an anonymous street fighter, had beaten him. Duane Jones, the undefeated powerhouse, the man who had never backed down from a fight in his life. That loss haunted him, not because of the pain, but because of the way it had happened. He had underestimated his opponent, let his pride cloud his judgment, and, worst of all, he had let himself believe that being stronger meant being unbeatable. But strength alone wasn't enough. Speed, technique, adaptability, these things mattered just as much, if not more. And now, as he stood in front of a mirror in his private training facility, he knew he had a choice to make. He could forget about that night, move on with his life, or he could do what he always did, push himself beyond his limits and come back stronger. There was no real choice. He had already made his decision. He wanted a rematch. Duane spent the next few months training like never before. He sought out fighters of all disciplines: Muay Thai strikers, Jiu-Jitsu grapplers, boxers with lightning-fast reflexes. He wanted to cover every weakness, every flaw that had been exposed that night. His workouts became brutal. 4 hours of striking drills in the morning, 2 hours of grappling in the afternoon, and then, at night, studying footage of his opponent, what little there was. He analyzed every movement, every step, every hesitation. The man who had beaten him wasn't just fast, he was precise. Every move had a purpose, every dodge was calculated, every counterattack was lethal. Duane knew that if he wanted to win, he had to become more than just a powerhouse. He had to become a fighter in every sense of the word. As the months went by, rumors started circulating in underground fight circles. Duane Jones was looking for someone. He was training, preparing, but for what? The whispers grew louder, and eventually, they reached the man he was looking for. One night, in a dimly lit gym on the outskirts of the city, a familiar voice echoed through the empty space. "You've been looking for me." Duane turned around and there he was, Jason, the same street fighter who had humbled him that night. He looked just as confident, just as composed. There was no arrogance in his eyes, just quiet certainty. "I have," Duane admitted. "I want a rematch." Jason smirked. "I figured you would." Duane stepped forward, his muscles tense but controlled. "This time, I'll be ready." Jason steadied him for a moment before nodding. "All right. Same rules. No refs. No timers. Just two men fighting until one of us is done." Duane nodded. "When?" Jason cracked his knuckles. "How about right now?" The fight. The gym was empty except for the two of them. No audience, no cameras, no distractions. Just the sound of their breathing, the faint hum of the overhead lights, and the dull echoes of their footsteps on the mat. Duane took a deep breath and raised his hands. He had trained for this, prepared for this. This time, he wouldn't make the same mistakes. Jason didn't wait. The moment Duane settled into his stance, Jason was already moving. Fast. A blur of motion as he closed the distance, throwing a quick jab to test the waters. Duane blocked it easily. But he knew that wasn't the real attack. The real attack came a split second later, a low kick aimed at his lead leg, just like last time. This time, Duane was ready. He lifted his leg just enough to avoid the impact, then immediately fired back with a counter punch aimed at Jason's ribs. Jason dodged, pivoting to the side, but Duane had already anticipated it. He twisted his body and launched a spinning back fist, something he never would have done months ago. Jason barely avoided it, but for the first time, there was a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Duane pressed forward. He wasn't just reacting anymore, he was dictating the pace. He threw a feint to draw out Jason's defense, then came in with a devastating right hook. Jason managed to block it, but the sheer force of it sent him stumbling back. Duane didn't let up. He chased him down, cutting off his movement, forcing him to the edge of the mat. He knew Jason thrived on space, on movement, on being able to weave in and out of danger. Duane wasn't going to let him have that advantage. Jason recognized the strategy and tried to escape, but Duane was faster than before. Stronger. Smarter. A brutal knee to the midsection. A sharp elbow to the temple. A crushing hook to the jaw. For the first time, Jason was the one on the defensive. But then, just as Duane thought he had him, Jason did something unexpected. He smiled. And in that moment, he struck. A lightning-fast counter. A perfectly timed slip followed by an uppercut that sent Duane staggering. Before he could recover, Jason was already on him, unleashing a flurry of strikes, precision, speed, technique. It was happening again. Duane gritted his teeth. No. Not this time. He absorbed the blows, rolled with them, minimized the damage. And then, when Jason overcommitted for just a fraction of a second, Duane struck. A brutal takedown. Jason hit the mat hard, and before he could recover, Duane was on top of him, locking in a submission hold. Jason struggled, tried to escape, but Duane's grip was like iron. Months of training had prepared him for this exact moment. Jason fought. Hard. But slowly, inevitably, his struggles weakened. Then, with a heavy breath, he tapped out. Duane released him immediately and rolled back onto his feet, breathing hard, sweat dripping from his face. Jason lay there for a moment before pushing himself up, shaking his head, and laughing. That, he said, rubbing his neck, was a hell of a fight. Duane extended a hand. Jason hesitated for a second, then took it. No hard feelings? Duane asked. Jason grinned. Nah. You earned it. Duane nodded. So? One win each? Jason chuckled. Guess that means we'll need a tiebreaker someday. Duane smirked. Someday. For now, he had proven what he needed to prove. He had come back from his defeat, faced his weakness, and overcome it. He wasn't just a powerhouse anymore. He was a fighter. And he was just getting started.